Y'all, you're hearing me live. I'm coming at you from Tunnel Hills, Kentucky, here in Hardin County, where I'm running for magistrate in District 3. And, here in Hardin County, we know that we live for three things: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We want to make sure that our family, friends, everybody here can live up to those ideals because that's what makes it all worthwhile. So, our nation seems to be a bit Middle East war weary. Can we blame us? In my lifetime, I went to the first Gulf War as soon as I got out of boot camp in 1990. My ship departed in, January of 91, straight off to war, right after Christmas. And got my first combat ribbon under me during that period. Came close to hitting quite a few floating mines, about 14 to 15 in total to be exact. And remember the night that I believe it was actually the Triple E got hit and another ship. Sadly, the Triple E is out there right now. Got 3,000 Marines in that contingent. And that is quite, I'm going to say frightening, just because now not only do you have to worry about the Iranians' capabilities of putting out floating mines, but you've got flying mines, because in my mind, that's what our drones are today. Think about how terrifying the kamikazes were to our grandparents in World War II when the Japanese would suicide bomb ships. Well, now you don't need a human to do that anymore. You just fly a drone into a ship to hit it. Fly a drone into troops on the ground to hit them. And that's what we have got to look forward to. And I was telling someone today, another veteran, I'm very glad that I am not out there to look forward to that terror. It was already terrifying enough at times in Afghanistan, and which was the war I was in after the first Gulf War. I was on deployment with 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit. USS Peleliu was the chief ship of that Marine Expeditionary Unit, a couple other ships in that Gator freighter contingent. But, at least off the coast of Pakistan, there weren't any floating landmines to have to worry about before going in. Now, having to look at, are there any mines that these troops are going to have to possibly worry about? Well, hopefully not. But I know that Iran has those capabilities. And I do not believe we destroyed all of their mine-laying ships. So now we have great capabilities as far as some minesweepers go. But again, it's not just the floating mines anymore. It's the drones that can fly in. And we don't necessarily, the RTD2 guns is what I like to call the phalanx guns that we have on ships to shoot down incoming missiles. Not sure that their capabilities are quite as effective for drones. I hope they are. That basically just sprays out thousands of bullets at a time incoming. But again, my heart really goes out to my brothers and sisters in the Marine Corps and Navy team that are there right now, because we know that Iran is ready. They've been ready. They believe that we are just posturing again about talking with them, and that we're not really serious, and that we're just biding time while talking to them before we attack them. That's what they believe. So that is not something that should be going on. They should know, hey, if we're serious about negotiations, we should be very serious about negotiations. We shouldn't be projecting one thing and planning actually another. That's what the Japanese did to us. That was not right. I don't know if when the president mentioned that to the Japanese in the office the other day, if he was just parroting what someone was telling him and their plan was right now, that we're planning on doing the reverse of what was done to us, that got us into World War II. But y'all, this could have been much more planned out. And I heard some intelligent people today saying that they believe this was actually necessary. That Iran is an actual real threat and is actually necessary. I heard it countered by a former CIA agent who said, no, they did not have the capabilities to actually attack with nuclear weapons. That number one, you have to test nuclear weapons before you could ever use them, and they have never tested any nuclear weapons. They haven't, and that's an actual scientific fact. You have to test nuclear weapons before you can use them. You have to know that what you made actually works, and they've never done that. So, can't really convince me that they were as big a threat as maybe even they want to pretend they were. So, here we go. I know that Americans are tired of all these games. And so what are we doing to say enough is enough? All right, I got somebody else on here tonight. Jonathan said millions of dollars being sprayed at $100 drones. It is not sustainable. And that's just it. As I said last night, we are at Winchester when it comes to our, $1 million and more expensive even missiles that we use to fire at these drones that cost far less than our $1 million missiles. As Jonathan just saying, $100 drones with explosives attached to them. So, Winchester is the term that we use in the military when we're in a firefight and we were down to our last magazines for our rifles. And once anyone yells Winchester up and down the lines, then we knew, we were in grave danger. If we did not repel the enemy with what we had left, we were done for. So right now, the missile capacity that we have in the United States is at Winchester. That's not good, since we're taking these drones out with $1 million missiles, higher actually costing that. Yeah. And we're planning on going in to an enemy that is far more capable than the Iraqis ever were. All right. Pierre Quadruple 7 says, when Israel is weakened by this war, all the Arabs will destroy Israel. It is a big mistake by fascists. Yeah. Problem here is, though, that one of the other countries that wants us to do this is Saudi Arabia, because they've been fighting the Houthis for quite some time. Had a proxy war there. They've been lobbing missiles over at Yemen and the Houthis in Yemen. Now the Houthis are seeing a chance to help out their ally, Persia, Iran, and they are now those guys are actually lobbing missiles. So that is an extreme danger that we've really got to come to grips with, because the Houthis are a very capable foe. And that's something that, unless you've been there, you don't know that, but they are. Are we more capable? Yes, but we're now being stretched thin if we are going to have to fight Iran and the Houthis in Yemen. So, all right, y'all, let's take a little break from talking about the war for a second. We'll come back to that. But another thing that is really at stake here for Hardin County, I was talking with one of my farmer friends today, is the fact that, he couldn't go down and get all the diesel he needed because it was just too expensive. And he needs to go buy some diesel to fill up his tractor to start plowing. But diesel is far too expensive right now. And not just that, the fertilizer that is used around here, the urea, nitrogen, all that, there is not a supply for it right now. And farmers are having to look at possibly having to plant without the fertilizer that they normally use. So, we're not at the point where all farmers can just give up the crops they've been growing for years and immediately dive into the type of farming I've been talking about, last week. I wish we were, but we're not yet. And so this is a tough time for farmers. They are going to have to decide, are they going to plant, as many of them apparently are going to, without fertilizer and just hope for the best? And, the thing is, what are they going to plant that someone will buy? Because China's not buying our soybeans. The last year's crop didn't, 51% of it or more was supposed to have been sold to China. They weren't buying. Canada didn't buy their portion, which is also extremely high. So a lot of soybeans around here went wasted and unsold last year. So farmers already still trying to recover from last year's disaster. And here we go again, creating another one right at the beginning of time to plow, fertilize, and plant. So, as we're saying, all of the fertilizer, urea, 30% of it, which is a significant portion, comes through the Middle East, comes through that Strait of Hormuz. Let's just go ahead and let someone else talk about it that maybe is a little more astute than me in this matter. Let's hear what they've got to say. So this is coming from someone that reports on this on a regular.
Good morning. There is another major crisis in the Persian Gulf as traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has been shut off for almost everybody. Many of the ships that are unable to pass through are transporting fertilizers that are needed by farmers across the world to get spring plantings done. We have already seen a huge boom in prices of oil since the war began, and what typically follows that is a big jump in the food price. That's because of the transport and shipping cost of the food itself. This is different. Those price spikes are coming too on harvested crops and other agricultural products because it costs a lot more to put a ship on the water and a truck on the road. But we're also looking at fertilizers, not making it in time to the farmers who need it right now to get the food grown in the first place. North American farmers need fertilizer for corn, which is 95% of the grain and feed grown in the US. High prices for the fertilizers, if they can be gotten at all, are likely pushing corn farmers to consider other crops. The problem with that is that the crops which demand fewer nutrients, like wheat and soybeans, are also at surplus, and the prices are falling. Countries in the Persian Gulf supply half of the world's exports of urea and 30% of ammonia. Here's the price chart for urea, up 25% in the first several days of the war, and today at $600 per ton. That's up over 70% since December, when it was $350 a ton. Besides urea, other crucial fertilizers pass through the Strait of Hormuz. For American farmers, their import dependency on Middle East fertilizers is not as pronounced as farmers in other countries, where this is already a crisis. But these markets are global, so the higher prices are hitting stocks everywhere, and it's coming at the worst possible time. Whether and how much fertilizer is applied in the next month will affect yields and prices later.
So that's just, that's it right there, is that we right now are looking at a possible, well, it seems imminent global crisis on our food supply. And this is something that could have been avoided. This is something that is going to affect Hardin County farmers. So we need county officials, state officials, and our federal Senate and congressional members to really be listening to the farmers here in Hardin County and all over Kentucky. They do not need any more disruption in the supply chain. It's already bad enough that we had to fight the tariffs last year and lost. Now you're hurting the supply chain of fertilizer and making diesel so expensive they can't even fill up the tanks on the tractors. So this is not good for our state, let alone our county. All right, so let's have one more person give us their perspective on what's going on, because this energy crisis, it's not just rising the cost of electricity because or of propane in your homes, because that's gone up 4%. That's hurting a lot of us that aren't even farmers. But add that to a farmer's concern, and we're looking at a real hurt here that we've got to do something about. And it can't just be same old, and the same people in office to play the same games. We've got to shake things up. I believe this weekend, people are starting to get the clue that Americans are not pleased with what's going on. We've had enough. So, we are looking for real leadership. It's time for real leadership. We're looking for leaders who really understand how to bring people together, not how to separate us. We need people that say, hey, we are here to work for the folks who vote for us and for those who don't vote for us, both. We're here to create real change and to really help each other, not to divide us, not to make us all see each other as the enemy. But let's just look at what's happening to our neighbors.
Across the American Corn Belt, farmers are getting ready for the spring planting season. It's a familiar rhythm this time of year. To plant soybeans and corn, farmers have to finish preparing the soil, spreading fertilizer on fields, and making sure their equipment is ready. But what they weren't quite ready for was a war in the Middle East driving up their costs. Scott Gaffner, a farmer in Greensville, Illinois, has been keeping track, and a call to a supply cooperative to ask for fertilizer pricing left him stunned at how quickly the prices were moving. He wrote the figures down for that day.
And so we called, and his statement to me was this. He goes, 20 minutes ago on anhydrous ammonia, it would have been $970. He said, but now it's going to be $1,020. For that same commodity, it changed within a 20-minute period of me calling him this morning before you got here.
The American Midwest may be 10,000 kilometers from the Middle East, but farmers here are taking an economic hit from the war there. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz and spiraling attacks on energy infrastructure have driven up diesel and fertilizer costs. The waterway carries a fifth of the world's oil and a third of its fertilizer. Most farmers were actually able to lock in their fertilizer orders before the war started, but they're already looking ahead to what could be a longer period of higher input prices that could squeeze their margins for years to come.
It's extremely difficult to have a lot of uncertainties because you always want to kind of know what you need to do as far as what crops you need to produce, what the prices are going to be, what your input prices are going to be. And the problem lately, and as we're talking about with the conflict with Iran and the shutting down of the Straits of Hormuz, it affects everybody. The longer this goes on, it will start to affect us more.
A 7-hour drive away in Hampton, Iowa, April Hems is preparing her farm for the planting season too. To her, this current energy and supply shock is just the latest in a string of crises for farmers.
We used to say, what's the black swan event? And I go, there's no more black, they're all black swans now. So I'm just looking for a white swan, somewhere to raise the flag.
U.S. soybean exports to China, until last year's trade war the number one buyer of U.S. soybeans, have yet to fully rebound. Record harvests worldwide meant commodity prices were pushed down, and tariffs on imports farmers need, whether on chemicals or on equipment, hit budgets too. The effects of the war in the Middle East are further compounding an already difficult cost situation.
Our commodity prices really haven't kept up with inflation, with the price of our inputs. So our margins are very, very small. So what we're doing now is just, you watch the markets and plan as much as we can. And if we have to sell, we have to sell even at a loss because we'll have another crop coming on and need room in the bins. So that, that's farming. You just, hopefully your bankers understands and sticks with you.
In these parts, farmers make up a close-knit community. A 5-minute drive takes April to fellow farmer Mark Guy. Their families have been friends for generations. Mark Guy has some complicated accounting ahead of him as well.
Well, the week before the war started, I did a fuel inventory and figured out how much I would need to buy and was on the verge of calling my fuel broker, and I just didn't get to it. So that little mistake was going to end up costing me substantially. I believe the fuel I will need to buy this spring will be in the 30% higher than before the war started.
And anytime farmers plant, it requires a lot of fuel. And how soon prices will drop remains uncertain.
We have 2 planters like this and tillage tractors, fertilizer application tractors. We will burn, 300 gallons a day, maybe up to 500 when we have all those machines in operation. And that spring work season will go on for, a month. Obviously not every day is fit to run that amount of equipment, that all the tractors.
So once again, like I said, the farmer that I talked to here in Hardin County, he hadn't bought his diesel yet. He was going out to do it, and it is way too expensive. He also said that a lot of the farmers around here, they cannot afford the fertilizer. So they're just going to have to decide, that he said, to plant without it. Now, that is going to have some major implications. And, we really are going to need to help out our neighbors. That's for sure. So now in other news, we know that back to the war front, this is just ramping up. Iran believes that we are being basically two-faced and aren't really serious about our negotiations. And I'm not sure that our greatest ally, Israel, is helping us out with that. Let's just take a look at what Israel decided to do to a church right during Holy Week. Why they would do this, it really boggles my mind. But let's check out and see what they decided they needed to do during Easter week. So Israeli police blocked Catholic leaders from entering the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to hold a private Palm Sunday Mass, marking the first time in centuries this has occurred and sparking widespread criticism from the United States and other countries. So, Jerusalem's major holy sites, including the church, have been shut down amid the ongoing Iran conflict as the city faces repeated Iranian missile attacks. The Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem condemned the decision as a manifestly unreasonable and grossly disproportionate measure, noting that it prevented two of the church's highest-ranking figures, the Latin Patriarch Pier Battista Piazzaballa figures, and the custos of the Holy Land from marking Palm Sunday at the site traditionally believed by Christians to be where Jesus was crucified. Palm Sunday, of course, commemorates Jesus' entry into Jerusalem and marks the beginning of Holy Week, which culminates in Easter next weekend. So, someone there was asking how will some of the Christian Zionists defend this one? So, often, yeah, interesting. A lot of comments there, but this does seem quite odd because this didn't happen during the first Gulf War, and they were under just as much threat then. And I remember because I was in the region at the time. So why now? What on earth could be the reason for that? So now let's get back to our weariness with war and with what's been going on with ICE. We've got and TSA and Homeland Security. So with all the logistics chaos happening at domestic airports, it's worth mentioning that the United States is hosting the FIFA World Cup in just 3 months. So this guy here says foreigners traveling into the U.S. and then traveling domestically to follow their teams. No way. ICE, TSA, and CBP will mess this up at all. Right? That little bit of irony there. And that's the thing. Folks already all over Europe and other nations, they're warning their people that travel to the U.S. is dangerous because of ICE and CBP. There's been plenty of tourists harassed, mistreated, abused, sent back, and are we going to think that they're not going to do that during FIFA? Maybe that's why FIFA gave out the FIFA Peace Prize to Diaper Dan, hoping that would be enough of a thing for him to say, okay, we'll loosen up a bit during that time. So, I advise anyone to check out this phone calls with ICE agents. This is somebody recorded a candid conversation with ICE agents, and what they said will shock you. Well, on that front, this weekend, yesterday, Saturday, was a very busy day for Americans to, get out and take part in their First Amendment rights. And all across the nation, there's hardly any small town even, that didn't have a protest, peaceful protest of some sort. And so, from here in Hardin County, we had at least 500 folks in Elizabethtown. I understand there was one in Bardstown, even all the way out in Whitesburg. There was one, those small towns. Of course, Louisville and Lexington had major ones. Frankfort had a big one. So did Bowling Green. Well, over in Memphis, theirs was just as peaceful as ours was. But here's what happened at the tail end of it. And more people should really be aware of this. This is all just part of the same game. And this is all, I'd say that the war is a distraction from what's going on at home.
This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy.
Let me make sure I uploaded the one I'm talking about in Memphis.
Beans shipped across the country in refrigerated trucks. And third, they take all that cooked and modern bush beans.
So this is the one in Memphis. Peaceful protest. And here's what happens at the end of it.
Brutality. Brutality. Y'all didn't permit the street. We already told y'all to get out the street. Go off the street. Get off the street. Last time, man. Back up. You got all the room in here. Get off the street. Back up. You can get off the street. Back up. We ain't got time for that. Get off the street. Back up. What's his name? Give me his name. Back up. Can you see his name? His name? Yeah, I got it.
Look at our politicians supporting doctors of demons. Are you down? Everybody go down. Supporting doctors.
That was made by a friend of mine, I believe. He sent it to me. And there are actually folks here on Palm Sunday. This is a Holy Week. Palm Sunday, folks that were peacefully protesting are now sitting in jail. Pepper sprayed with bear canisters full of pepper spray. You saw it being hosed right down on them. This is America. You would think that we're back in the 1960s, 1970s. Absolutely peacefully protesting. But Memphis has been suffering under the same type of things that Minneapolis, St. Paul, did, and right at the same time, it was going on in Memphis, but no one has been going down and actually bringing that out and showing what's happening in Memphis. I've showed it here, y'all. Hopefully someone can get the word out that that's, ICE has been down there being crazy. And it seems like the police there just want to remind folks there that they've got the same type of power, and they've been backing ICE for over a year now. So, or, a year, I think, is now passed since this started. And it's time for it to stop. We've all got to come together and say, hey, we're all in this together. This is just a distraction from the Epstein files. It's just a distraction for us to take our eye off the fact that the Trump sons are making millions. They've even made $1 billion since the second term. As $30 million that 19-year-old Barron Trump invested in petroleum right before this war. And then his brother Eric, as I showed last night, invested in a drone company that got a Pentagon contract into effect just a few days before the war kicked off. So, y'all, if no one really gives a crap about this, then something's wrong. But obviously, 8 million Americans marched on Saturday all across this nation, and they were peaceful marches. That was peaceful in Memphis until the police turned it otherwise. So we have got to do something. It's time, right? 8,000 people. 8 million people nationwide. So if you've got 8 million people in the streets, that means they have at least 10 people supporting them apiece. So you do the math, 8 million times 10, we're reaching the tipping point. We're reaching the point now where there's enough people that love what's happening in the Middle East, love what's happening in the streets, but the people that are just the opposite of that are starting to outnumber those who think that bullying and brutality are cool. So once we get enough of us rising up and peacefully saying no more, you can send us to jail, but no more. Release the Epstein files, bring justice back to America, not just for poor folks and working folks, but make justice go up and down the same. The Epstein class cannot be separate anymore when it comes to justice. Because right now, part of the Epstein class is making money off of this war, making money off of petroleum futures, making money off the drones. And they're in for a rude awakening if they think that this is going to be an easy war. All right, got quite a few out here commenting. I don't want to neglect you, so let me pause what I'm doing and let's go look at what y'all are saying. All right, so we got per pair quadruple 7. We got butterfly at sunrise, organic chicken poop, cow poop, pig poop. Absolutely. That is the way to fertilize, just that we've gotten so far away from it now. That's what needs to be spread. Absolutely. On farms, and people, got to get back to that. Absolutely. But that's going to take a major shift. Private Snowball 167. Trump is a dirty goy to Israel, along with both the Republican and Democratic politicians. This nation is controlled by globalist pigs who have sold our nation out for highest bidder. $67-day French. Yes, they're making everything unaffordable. Evan Ezero, Iran was and never is a threat to U.S. I don't agree with that, but are they the level that this is making them out to be? No, I think we're making them stronger though, because they're circumventing their oil. They're shipping it through other routes and getting it out. Luke says Trump is a fool. Tristan Humany says America could be producing the same, drill, baby, drill. All right. Yeah. Antonio Ramos, Cuba must be free. Okay. Yeah. Don't agree. I don't disagree. I don't necessarily agree that needs to be our blood shed to do that, though. Tristan Humway. Yeah, I don't think that's all right. All right. Yeah, I'm not saying they did. Yeah. All right. Free Cuba, deport all Democrats to Cuba. Ha ha. Hilarious. All right. Papadilla. He means mess this all up. Man, a lot of comments tonight. Kevin Poole, keep up the great work. Thanks, Kevin. We got Revolution 9129, Durban criminal land stealing Israel. Okay. Oh, Margaret says it's not a peaceful protest. Well, that's not what I saw. I saw a peaceful protest. And I talked to folks who are on the ground there, and they said it was peaceful. And right, just human being says just praying with no regard. Absolutely no regard. Those folks were locked arm in arm, walking, marching peacefully, not hurting anyone. Protest peaceful, cops not, is what Justin Human says. All right. Simple-minded people, Robert Morris says. Yeah. Robert Moore says, oh, go law enforcement. Okay. Jack Rabbit. Oh, man. So I got lots of trolls here tonight and a lot of people interested in what's, we're talking about. Memphis cops do not surprise. Yeah. That's what I'm starting to understand. All right, show me where graffiti is considered peaceful. No one says that. So yeah, if you're worked up about graffiti, but you're not worked up about human rights violations, wow, that's interesting. All right. No, nothing at all. I have no problem with deporting cartel members ever, but it's all the kids that are being deported and the folks who have committed no crimes that I'm upset about, and the Americans that are being deported, the veterans that have been detained. That's that pisses me off. Yeah. Not just distractions, but a chance for angry cops to work it out on protesters. Yeah. WW, the police should be back on ice. Okay, so you like brutality. Got it. And where do you think they get the supply of children for the Epstein files, but for the cartels, they're supplying them? Okay. Yeah. And investigation finds no king protest backed by network of... no one's getting paid. If so, I'd have a bunch of money in my bank right now. No one's getting paid to protest. That's a bunch of horse shit. So Justin Human Being said, I heard a revised number of 11 million. If that's the case, then we've hit that tipping point. Thanks, Justin Human Being. I'll have to look that one up. Yeah, if that's the case, if we hit 11 million, we have hit the tipping point. And I'm sure that Justin, who was on here earlier, would be glad to hear that. According to a copy of the permit for the flagship monarch in Minnesota, indivisible, National Well Hill Democratic Political Advocacy. Yeah. Guys always want to come out with the anti-Semitic George Soros stuff. That's awesome. I definitely didn't see millions. The live feed showed me maybe dozens, even supposed crowd cheering at the media. Yeah, well, I saw Yeah, I saw the numbers in Louisville. I saw the 500 here in Elizabethtown. It's a lot of different people groups. Yeah, nope, they're not all about Marxism. Not at all. Yeah, very few. Yeah, a handful of Marxists. The rest are just normal, everyday people. I'm not a Marxist. I'm just not part of the Epstein class. It's not peaceful to take over the streets. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Take over the streets. It's a call to protest. It's not called to sit on your couch. All right. So, all right. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in. Got to move on. So now, if you think that the fact that the Houthis are involved is just a laughing matter, I want to remind you that the last time they got involved in the Middle East, there were dire complications that we're still paying for up to this time. When they actually boarded ships, the Houthis did. And that's, something that I used to do with the Marines. And seeing the Houthis do it, that's not cool at all, right? So, yeah, let's take a gander at what capabilities the Houthis actually have. And this is not good. I am very concerned for my friends that are still in the military and having to go up against this. So
it comes after these images of U.S. Marines sent to the region were released by the Pentagon. Iran is warning the regime will rain fire on American troops if they attack. Around 3,500 U.S. Marines and soldiers have now arrived in the Persian Gulf, awaiting final orders. Meanwhile, the U.S. and Israel have continued airstrikes on Iran, including in Tehran, where the offices of a Qatari news channel were hit. But Iran has again hit back, targeting Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. And in Israel, a fire broke out at an industrial site to the south of Beersheba after an Iranian missile strike. With the very latest is our world news correspondent, Joe Inwood.
For a military that the US claims to have destroyed, Iran still seems capable of inflicting damage. In the Negev desert, an industrial park burns, the result of Iranian missile strikes on Israel. Today,
and we did it. In Lebanon, I've instructed the military to expand the existing security strip in order to finally thwart the threat of invasion and to keep missile fire away from our borders.
These are the skies over Tehran tonight. Iranian air defense is still apparently in action. Iran will know it cannot defeat the US and Israel militarily, but may not need to if it can outlast them. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Over the past month, several countries have been dragged into the conflict, and now the launch of missiles targeting Israel from Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthi rebels this weekend marks yet another escalation, potentially costing more lives and further disrupting the global economy. Here's Mark Ashdown.
December 2023, Houthi rebels board a tanker in the Red Sea. These attacks resulted in years of disruption to global trade. Any repeat could deliver a fresh blow to economies around the world. The focus so far has been on solving Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the key shipping pinch point. Saudi Arabia is currently diverting 4 million barrels a day through a pipeline to Yanbu on the Red Sea coast. That means it can maintain the flow of oil to the Asian market by safely sailing it past Yemen. But that route, too, could now be under threat. From 2023, almost 2 years of Houthi attacks saw around 30 vessels damaged. Any repeat, as threatened, could see the narrow Bab al-Mandab Strait become another flashpoint, affecting routes for Saudi oil. And some regions are very dependent on this supply, with shortages already emerging. In Ethiopia, drivers queue at petrol stations. That's the picture too in Kenya and South Africa. Some nations in the region have now started to ration fuel. Asia has been hard hit too. The Philippines has moved to a 4-day work week, while Myanmar has imposed alternate driving days. Some countries have also introduced a fuel price cap.
In Thailand, some people have been ordered to conserve energy by suspending travel, taking the stairs instead of elevators. In Bangladesh, they've closed universities there. Sri Lanka's had some fuel rationing.
Parts of Australia are also running short of fuel. In 2 states, Victoria and Tasmania, travel on public transport will now be free for a month. And in Egypt, the streets are dark. Shops, restaurants and cafes are told to close by 9 p.m. every night to preserve energy. The government here says the UK has a strong and diverse supply of fuel and has urged motorists not to alter their buying habits.
Production is being maintained, supplies are being maintained, so people should just carry on as usual. Of course, governments will always plan for contingencies. That is always the right thing to do, but people should be reassured ahead of the Easter holidays just to carry on as things are.
90% of all trade is shipped on the ocean. If the Red Sea does become another key trading route dragged into this conflict, there could be huge implications for the global economy. Mark Ashdown, BBC News.
Simon Jack is with me alongside Jeremy Bowen. To you, Simon, first. Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves.
All right. So, like I was saying, the capabilities of Yemen, they're not something that we can take for granted as being weak or easily dismissed. So those are 2 straits right near each other. That one there with Yemen, that Saudi Arabia has to send its fuel tankers through for them to get out and go to the rest of the world. And then the Strait of Hormuz, closing both those off. That's not helping Saudi. One of the benefactors that this president loves so much, or the regime of Saudi Arabia. So, getting the Houthis involved from Yemen now, this is disastrous. So, all right. Mike Walker thinks that, so Joe Burkus says Trump is a pedophile and a traitor. Got a fan here who thinks he's not. That's hilarious. I haven't seen him do anything for the average Joe. The average Joe now went from having eggs that were expensive after the bird flu, and of course that was going to happen, to that being such a major crisis, to now can't afford steaks, can't afford so many other store-bought commodities, can't afford gas, electric utilities have gone up, price of propane's gone up. So I don't see, Mike, that he's done anything for me. Maybe he's done something for you. Maybe you got some insider training there from him and he helped you out. But so Goopender, is America great again yet? That's my question. I don't see it, but Mike thinks so. So we got Just Human Being. I think Orange UI is being encouraged to cause global chaos. Goopender, are we getting tired of winning yet? Losing so bigly. All right. So, y'all, that's really it in a nutshell. We are looking at the fact that this country is at the crossroads. If the numbers are correct that were just reported by someone here a second ago, saying that the numbers were actually 11 million in the streets instead of the previous reported 8 million, then we've hit that tipping point. There are now enough folks, because if there's 11 million, then that meant multiply it by 10. There's 10 people backing them at home and friends and family. So we're at the tipping point now to where this regime is going to have to pay attention. Gas prices, inflation, tariffs, Iran war, uncertainty, and that's the U.S. economy. Waving a flag at those bulls each of those charging toward us, and our economy is supposed to absorb it. Yeah, not sure that absorbing is what's actually going to happen. So that, something. So, yeah, here we go. Me and the boys in Iran next month. Yeah. Yeah, and let's go back to that again. Me and the boys in Iran next month because Mark Levin convinced Donnie T that we're 2 weeks away from a nuclear Iran for the 99th time since 1995. And y'all, when Diaper Don had his son-in-law, Kushner, over there negotiating before the attack, well, they had reached the point where Iran was going to give even more concessions than they had given when Obama's team negotiated. We were even a better point, and we were at a good point when we had that, the negotiations that Obama had made, to where the whole world could go in and inspect their nuclear capabilities, make sure that they didn't have weapons capabilities. We had reached a point that was better than that, and yet Kushner has no idea of how to be a diplomat. He's never been a diplomat. He has no experience in that. And yeah, they just blew it all up for this. So that's where we are. So,
Can you explain how these immigration surges are becoming a threat to national security?
Well, we're letting legit criminal investigations go by the wayside. They can't go after them because they're forced to work.
So, the legit things, yeah, we're not going after them. So. All right. Well, y'all, we reached that point. It's now down to, we just got to take care of one another. We've got to, as I'm saying, buy local, stay local. I was out today, bought some great running shoes for my wife, some Hokas, because they're the best for her feet when she's working. She's on her feet all day long. And I made sure that I did not buy them online. I went down to Running Souls there in Elizabethtown and bought local, helping out of, combat veteran, retired military. He's got his own running shop there, Running Souls. Great service, great price, great shoes. They gave me a veteran discount. And yeah, just can't say enough. We've got to buy local, eat local, stay local, keep everything local. That's how we help our neighbors. That's how we show love to our neighbors. That's how we say, hey, I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. And y'all, that's what we got to do. So united we stand, divided we fall. I'm loving my neighbor as myself, as I know we can do here in Hardin County. And that is what we do. That's what we believe. And y'all, bless your corazon. Hit the like and subscribe. Come on back tomorrow night, and we'll talk about how our farmers can recover from this. What plan can we come up with to get some relief? And it's got to be us helping our neighbors out, just buying. We definitely got to come up with a real plan for buying local, making the farmers market sell out every single day, Wednesday and Saturday here in Hardin County. And anywhere else you can find something and someone that is making something local, selling something local, buy it local. Y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. And I hope that we all remember, it's not anymore about left or about right. It's about justice for all of us, not just them getting away with everything they get away with in the Epstein class, right? We got to say, hey, left and right, we can't fight anymore. We got to reach a middle ground, come to consensus, get this country running for the regular folks. All right, we're going to start off with that in Hardin County. Y'all have a great weekend. Yeah, it is still rich versus the poor, but it's also, we can't just let it be. We can't let the middle class fight the poor either. We got to say, hey, come together, middle class, poor, all of us, and work together. All right. So y'all, like I said earlier, let's remember everyone deployed for our freedom overseas right now. We can't forget everything that they're about to be called upon to do. They didn't ask for it, This is what we voted for when we voted for this. If you voted for this administration, I didn't, but I'm still not going to let down my support of the Americans that put on that uniform to defend us. And if we don't want them to be misused and abused, then it's up to us to end the nonsense. Have a great one.
When the banks foreclosed on farms across the